Hello. So as I was reading the Ron Edwards quote, what first thing that came to mind was lack of time. Especially this year, I feel like I am running out of time for all my units. I am a language arts teacher, so I do reading, writing, and word study in 85 minutes with three different classes. And every day I'm like, oh, sorry guys, we've got to move on. Oh, sorry guys, we got to move on. And with our curriculum, every day is a new lesson. And yes, it builds off the skills that I'm teaching, but my kids feel rushed. And so what I've realized is that my kids don't have enough time, and I feel like I don't have enough time to truly help every single one of my students. And that's so hard for me. And I feel that it's just a struggle. I look at my lessons. I've already had my reading coach come in and kind of time my lessons, time my small group instruction, and even she was kind of stumped just for the fact that how are we going to get everything done? And then there's the stress of just the star at the end of the year, which I have a good group of kids this year and I know I believe in them, I know they can do it, but it's a stressful time. And so with this quote, I went right back. I went to lack of time, and it's scary because we're supposed to be teaching all this stuff but we don't have time. And especially now that my time's been cut, I've kind of tweaked my lessons. And so Monday through Thursday, I teach my lessons. And on Fridays, I made it a day where, all right, friends, let's just work whatever you feel like you are struggling with. And Monday through Thursday, I have my small group instruction. So by Friday, they know what they're struggling with. They pick and choose what reading skill or writing skill they're going to work on that day. And that's all they do is they just review and I reteach, and so I at least have one day a week now that I feel like I can help my students a little bit more than I would if I'm teaching every single day. I feel like I struggle with that. And it's hard, especially as an educator, because you feel like you want to reach every single student. And sometimes that's almost impossible when we're all pretty much, we love to help people, we love to help others, and we want to see our students succeed. So with this quote, it really hit hard when I thought about the lack of time that I have this year, especially. And so the time that I can think about when I learned something and it was pretty big was in my methods class. We had to create an entire lesson, and the school that I was assigned to, they were they had to create their own what is it? I can statements. There you go. I can statements. They had to create, I mean, everything from scratch. And I wasn't used to that. So everything I was taught in my methods class from UNT, I had to apply it in this lesson, and I had to interpret and analyze and even come up with the essential questions for my students to understand. And I started with the end goal of what do I want my students to learn and how are they going to learn it? And it was intimidating to me because in the teacher prep, you feel prepared. You feel like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can do this because you're researching, you're studying, but it doesn't really feel real until you actually have to create a lesson and then teach that lesson with something you've probably never done before. And I've been in the daycare world where I've taught students before. I've been around kids all my life, but it wasn't until that one methods class when she had us teach a lesson and I had to come up with my I can statement, my essential questions, the lesson itself, the resources, and making sure my students understood and I understood what I was teaching. That was scary for me, but I learned the most through that just for the fact that I had to interpret. I had to put in perspective of what are my kids learning here? How are they learning it? Are they actually struggling? How do I know they're learning it? And so there was a lot of different questions. And I had to also think about all the different type of learners. I had to think about small group instruction. So that to me was an eye opener for me in my college career was actually teaching my first lesson. And I even had I guess, I don't remember what they call it. I guess the person in charge of our methods classes, in charge of our student teaching, that day she decided to come observe me. So on top of teaching everything I had to learn or teaching my students what I have learned, I was also being observed. And it was nerve-wracking, but I felt at the end, I pushed myself even further than I had before, and I felt amazing at the end because I actually took the time to analyze my students. I looked at student data, I looked at the upcoming units, I created the I can statement, the essential questions, the every part of the lesson plan, and I felt we're well prepared because I made sure to go back and really understand my students and understand myself as a learner just because how would I want to learn? How do I learn best? And I learn best by hands-on, engaging, and not just reading a textbook and listening to a presentation all the time. Sometimes that's nice, but not all the time. So I had to think about that in mind. So there was many different concepts and different things that I had to think about in order to implement this lesson, to apply this lesson, and hope that my students understood and they got it. And in the end, they did, and they loved it. We actually did what's called Kid Blog, and they were blogging, and that was the first time ever blogging. So it was very interesting to see, and I learned a lot through those kids that day, and I took away from that the best lesson that I could have done. And there were some errors and some mistakes that I made, and that's when you reflect on it, you're like, okay, that went well, that didn't go so well. So what can I change for next time? And I have never forgotten that moment. And just reading chapter 4 and 5, it made me realize that you have to go through those times to actually understand yourself as a learner and understand yourself as an educator. Thank you.